It's TV time!
Alrighty, I guess that's it for chapter 3, the finale. Um, my god, that fight at the end against the knight was so difficult. And I know, obviously, I was wasting my time because you can't actually beat him, but the fight actually, I mean, you literally saw it ends once you get to a special attack. But I was struggling a bit because I didn't know, like, did you just have to last until that point? Or do you actually, like, I don't know, do you actually have to fight him? Because I just thought that you had to outlast his attacks. Um, outlast his attack, so I just kept defending and defending to the point of his special attack. But I learned he just keeps going. You have to attack him a bit. I think you probably have to get him to like 80, 70% health, and then he'll do his special attack. So yeah, so it's basically impossible to win. Um, so Yeah, and I'm just gonna say this right now. Um, well, I'm recording this before I do my uh I didn't mean to go back. I'm recording this before I do the the snow grave route. So yeah, or well, there is no snow grave route, but I'm gonna use my snow grave save file where I kill everybody in chapter ones and twos. So I doubt there's gonna be a genocide route for this one, but at least with the stronger weapons I have, it might make that fight easier. So yeah, but the problem is I'll have to do all the S ranks again. I have to fucking get the armor, and then I have to do that whole fight again. And I'm pretty sure it might be even harder because I'll have slightly less better items because on Snowgrave you can't get as many good items as before on Snowgrave. Well, specifically in Chapter 2, because in Chapter 2 you're basically locked at a Queen's Mansion, and there's a lot of good items in there, like some revivements or better armors or better healing items, but we're not going to have any of that for coming into chapter 3. So yeah. But I don't know why I'm saying this because like I said, I'm not sure if I'm going to include anything from the Snow Grade because I don't think anything is different. You'll probably just get some dialogue changes for fighting everybody instead of sparing them, and that's really it. I doubt there's anything different. I'm not even sure if this classifies as the when I did the rooms or played that video game when I got the S ranks. I'm not sure if that classified as a genocide route because you had to kill everything just to get the armor. I mean, you did get that cool secret boss fight, so I guess for a lot of people, I never played it. It reminds them of the old style, like literally back 1980s, whatever, the Link games. Breath of the Wild? No, it's Link Zelda games. Like I said, I never played them, but I'm sure that'll remind old people because I don't know. I just remember seeing him with a sword and that's it. But like I said, that boss fight against him, against that thing, was pretty cool. And yeah, it was kind of getting freaky towards the end, like kind of goofy too. Like your video game character, the Chris video game characters, literally just dips out of the screen. Like, bro, fuck this shit. I'm out, bro. And then literally somehow you're able to walk into the game. This chapter was insane, and let me just say that I've been talking about a lot of random shit. I know, but I'll say my thoughts right now. This chapter was peak. Oh my god, from the beginning to end. I know people probably hate all the goofy stuff, the filler, whatever. Technically, people can see it as filler until the dark and crazy shit happens. Like towards the end, like fucking the night killed your TV. And I remember there was a lot of game theories that the knight would be other people, like, but I guess it was the rowing knight. There are two different people than the actual knight. Because Chris, made the fountain. Well, just Chris. I wouldn't say we, because the player had no involvement in that. You know, in Undertale Genocide, it makes it very clear that you are the one making the choices. You are the one changing the world. But here, you can't blame me for shit. Chris did all that in chapter 2. He's the one that made the dark world. All this shit happened. And yeah, that ending too, where you see inside the bunker. Oh my god. I'm not ready for the next chapter. Oh my god, bruh. My heart was literally like pounding. Like, what the fuck is going on in this game, bruh? This is crazy. Like, what is going on in Mr. Toby Fox's mind, bruh? And obviously, the music was a banger. Even the remixes of the battle theme were bangers. There were some, like, Undertale tracks in there, like, I would say the gay song because it plays when the Royal Knights fall in love. Royal Guards, whatever. Royal Knights. I said Royal Knights, Royal Guards. I mean, they're dressed like knights. And then some familiar like Metaton. There was a Metaton track, like the Metaton news theme in there, like dun 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 dun. But it only played like a couple notes. It didn't play like the whole thing. It was like dun 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 dun. It just kept repeating. So, but still, it was still cool. Um, but I'm kind of surprised. This whole chapter takes place in the dark world. I mean, yes, you technically go into the light world in the end, but the whole chapter is just a dark world, but not in the castle town. I'm assuming you get to go in the castle town in chapter 4, but man, oh man, 10 out of 10 for everything, man. Like visually, it looks good. This is what happens when you take your time with video games. No bugs, nothing. Had a flawless experience. Well, except beforehand, because well, that was on the demo. That wasn't on the full game. That sometimes when I play, like the audio would cut out for some reason, but that was in the demo. So the demo not working is understandable. It's not a paid game. It's whatever, you know. It's essentially a beta. Essentially, I mean, technically a full game, but you know what I'm trying to say. Oh, but man, dude, that was so good. That was such a peak chapter. And if you're wondering which save file I'm gonna use, if I'm gonna use this one or this one, because this was the one I beat it on first. But this one was, where I actually fought him. I did the secret, the video game rooms, all three of them. I got the armor. Yeah, without that armor, by the way, I think it's impossible to do it to last that long against that fight. Or at least maybe 10 times harder, because it makes his attacks do less damage. Well, not all attacks, but just some attacks. Some attacks still do a lot of damage, like the red swords or whatever they're fucking called. Oh my god, that was crazy, bruh. Like so far, this game's not even done, but just with the 3 chapters alone, like this is peak video gaming. Oh my god. Like that ending though, like when suddenly Undying came and attacked them, like let's go, and then only for her to get carried away. Like, bitch, where's your Undying the Undying form, bruh? Generate your determination and kill this thing. He's threatening the world right now, but she's willing to go fucking god mode against a fucking kid with a stick. It's crazy. It's actually wild. I don't know, maybe in this universe you can't do that, since I guess I don't know if their determination if it exists or not, but you know what, I'm not gonna try to be bothered to all that, get into all that, so yeah. But it kinda sucks because I really think we were gonna get Castletown, be able to a castle it's Castletown? The the light world, whatever it was called. If we got to interact with everybody, but I guess we won't be able to do that until next chapter. But still, I'm looking forward to doing that as well. Um, so like I said, I mean, chapter 4 will still be uploaded tomorrow, but for me, I have to do Snowgrave again. So like I said, I might include some clips on everything that I feel like is majorly different, or I might start recording on certain fights. Oh, mostly the TV fight. Like, I'm not sure if you can actually like attack him or defeat him with violence. Because, like I said, I think the entirety of this chapter, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. Whether you kill everything or not. But I might as well do it just to do it. And plus, I have to do that insane boss fight again. With lesser good items, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you can still get some good items in this chapter, so it's whatever. With the point system and whatever. I mean, my Snowgrave route has a lot of money, anyways, from all the murdering I've been doing, all the freezing I've been doing. Make some frozen chicken. I'm very curious though. I mean, you'll get no resolution with that. So I'm assuming you do with chapter 4 with Birdley and how he's doing and all the other characters. Like, I'm genuinely curious. Or is he still gonna be in the office, just, or not the office, the laboratory, just still dead? Like, I'm so curious. And there's this one cutscene too. Man, I keep yapping, but that's how you know I like a video game. There's this one cutscene. It was a very funny cutscene, but where Tenna and you interact with this closet, and there's a Pipis. That's what the name of the in attack that Spamton used. And then the Tenna was looking at the Pipis and whatever, whatever. And then next thing you know, Spamton comes out of your inventory because I did kill, well, not kill, but like uh defeat Spamton. And then he says some things, and it's a funny cutscene at all. But I wish Jevil had something like that in chapter 2. You know, but then again, he probably might. Like, Jevil's actually crazy, though. So maybe he'll actually just kill anything. But hey, give us something like that for Jevil. But what I am interested in is you still technically kill him in the Snowgrave route. You still get an item from him in Snowgrave. So I'm curious if that interaction will go any differently. Or will the interaction not happen at all? Or will it just happen the same, but he'll still act goofy? Because on Snowgrave, I mean, we straight up killed him. We froze him to death. But we still get his weapon. So I'm not sure if he'll come out in our inventory, and if the cutscene will just play the same as it did regularly, or if will it be different because of Snowgrave. Like I said, probably overthinking it, but I'm genuinely curious. I am so curious. Um, but probably nothing will happen. Either nothing will happen, or the same thing will happen as, if you beat him with Mercy. Well, I'm sure if you fight him or beat him with Mercy, it's the same thing. But on Snowgrave, like I say, it's completely different. Like, I don't know. It's just, he just have a tort. It just feels different. So yeah. So again, tomorrow we get started with chapter 4. So like I said, we're not gonna do a genocide route video, whatever. Like I said, I think it's gonna be completely the same. Maybe for chapter 4, it'll be different. We'll see. Especially if Noelle comes into play. Because I do know that she's in the chapter, but I don't know what role she plays for sure. If she has any role significance or whatever. Uh, but anyways, I'm done yapping. That was a good game. That was a good chapter. Like, especially with Toriel at the end. Like, I thought we would actually see Toriel talking and doing all this shit in the dark world. But yeah. So yeah, I have no idea how chapter 4 is gonna go down. Obviously, some dark shit's gonna happen. Some dark, freaky shit. Well, freaky as in just scary, not like freaky, deaky. Like, there was kissing in this chapter, and maybe some threesomes. But other than that, like, okay, I'll stop. But yeah, I guess that's it for me. Chapter 4, I'll do my intros per usual. So yeah, I might make chapter 4 videos just a little less than an hour and a half. Maybe to an hour and a half. Because I feel like 2 hours is a bit rushing it too much. So I'll do an hour and a half. So yeah, it's still like it's still. I'm recording this on the 5th. It's still early, so I technically finished chapter 3 in one day. I could have started chapter 4, but like I said, I wanted to do the secret stuff. I wanted to do the secret boss. So I did figure it out on my own, except for one part that I had to look up. I just could not figure it out. And thankfully, I didn't get spoiled while looking it up. So there's this you get like the freezing character, whoever I guess that's supposed to represent Noel. Um, but anyways, I mean probably I have no idea, and it's just a theory. But no, fucking, I couldn't figure out what to do because it was like a maze. You had to probably get through the maze in a certain pattern, otherwise you're just infinitely looping, and I just could not figure it out. But then I looked it up, and then, like I said, you just have to look where she's going. If she's not following you in the certain path you're going, then it's not the right way. So I couldn't see that. I thought she was just stopping because she couldn't follow me. I didn't think it would actually be the puzzle solution. But like I said, I'm just that much of a retard sometimes. Just can't think. Like, I mean, I had a feeling she had to do something with it, but I just didn't think what. Like, I don't know. Anyway, I was just getting really frustrated, but again, that was my fault. I was just being a dumbass. But other than that, like I said, this was gaming, bruh. Fuck AAA games. This is what we need right now, bruh. We don't need them $70, $80 slop games. This is what we need. Anyways, I'm done for real this time, and I'll see y'all tomorrow for chapter 4. Alright, see you then.